am the interviewer, Jeannie Carr. My camera person is Heather Thimes. We are interviewing Staff Sergeant Humberto Centeno, who fought in Kuwait. We are interviewing him on December 21st, 2004 at Rome Free Academy. Okay, can you please start by stating your name, rank, and branch of service?
My name is Humberto J. Centeno. I was a Staff Sergeant in the United States Air Force.
Okay, what made you want to join the Armed Forces?
When I was in college, I was an ROTC cadet, and basically it turns me toward it. I had good friends there. I liked the general idea of the military, the honor behind it, the camaraderie, and just a chance to prove that I could do something good.
Where did you go for training, and what was your training?
At first, I went to Lackland Air Force Base in Texas, San Antonio, Texas, for basic military training. So, 6 weeks after that, I was put into the Medina Annex of Lackland for basic electronics training. That lasted a couple months, and then I went to Fort Gordon, Georgia. And that was where I had satellite communications and telemetry systems training with the Army. That lasted a couple of months.
What value do you see your training? Did it help you when you were over there? Was it worthwhile?
Yes, it was very much worthwhile. The training we received was for maintenance and basic electronics of satellite equipment. So whenever anything broke down, or we would fix it. And if we were ever seeing jamming or anything like that, we would know the symptoms of it and be able to correct it or counter it.
Mm-hmm. What unit were you assigned to?
I was first assigned to the 729th Air Control Squadron at Hill Air Force Base, Utah. After that, I was assigned to the 1st ACS, the 1st Airborne Command and Control Squadron in Omaha, Nebraska, Offutt. In the meantime, when I was deployed to the desert, I was part of the 386th Expeditionary Air Control Squadron at Al Aslan Air Base, Kuwait.
What were your duties in each of these units?
In the 729th, I was basically a technician. I was learning satellite, ground combat satellite, ground tactical satellite communications. I worked on Track 170s, V100s. They're just, V2s. They're basically boxes, camouflage boxes that we would sit in, and they'd be ground terminals for communicating with satellites and line of sight with other ones.
Okay. While in Kuwait, what were your objectives?
My objectives include were to provide communications for the 386 Expeditionary Control Squadron. Basically, we would provide comm to different users, whoever was from the base commander on down, and we would send that to either Camp Doha, which is in the Army, or through a line of sight, tropospheric scatter radios, or satellite communications, depending on, we'd send it to multiple areas, Bahrain, back to the States, CENTCOM, whoever our customers were.
What's that triple?
No, the Track 170?
Yeah, what is that?
The Track 170 is basically, that's the line of sight radios. We would basically, it's a giant radio with 2 antennas, and we pass signals through it, bounce it off the Earth's troposphere to a location a couple hundred miles away. And the 100 Alpha is the satellite band. That's the one we use to communicate with the satellites.
Okay. What were most of your duties while on the base?
On the base, when I would wake up, get ready to go, show up at the office, we'd go around, first of all, check our logs to see what happened in the previous shift. Then we would go on to see the actual equipment. Like the 100 Alpha van was right near our office, so we'd just step out of the office, into the 100 van, check the gauges, make sure everything was normal. And then we would get on our little gator and go out to the different, the Track 170 vans, which were stationed all over Al Aslan. And we would go and check their logs and check their equipment, make sure everything was still functioning within normal parameters. We still had comm and the tissers. Tissers were on all a little breakable line of sight. Those, if we would talk base to base instead of running a landline down, we would hook up 2 tissers and line of sight, and they'd just talk to each other. And we would go all over Al Aslan, making sure those readings were still right, and make sure the equipment was clean, the sand gets into everything over there. So we just make sure we give it a good dusting, make sure the power supplies were still clean.
What combat experience do you have?
During the initial Iraqi freedom push, I was there in Al Aslan, and we had incoming Scud missile attacks for about a week and a half straight. That was the hardest part of my combat experience, running from bunker to bunker, making sure that our equipment was still up and running during Scud storm attacks.
Okay. What is a Scud Attack, and what do the Americans do to counter it?
A Scud Attack is basically a missile, land shot missile, intra-theater missile shot from the Iraqis, and layman's term is a telephone pole with a warhead on one end and an engine on the other, and it's basically shot at general directions towards you. And it's pretty devastating. It can be tipped with a conventional or chemical warhead. And that was the scariest part, the chemical part. That we didn't know if they actually had chemical warheads on, so we were constantly prepared to counteract them. We had chemical suits, chem suits, gas masks and chem suits. They were suits with that were this thick inside of them. They were charcoal impregnated to soak up the chemicals. We had boots, we had rubber gloves on, and we had our gas masks that we carried with us at all times to breathe in case something like this were to happen. And we also had the Patriot missile launchers. And those guys saved us countless times. Anytime there was an incoming Scud, we'd hear alarm red, and soon afterwards you'd hear a Patriot missile taken off. And as soon as it leaves, it's sonic boom. It goes sonic as soon as it leaves the container, and that's the last thing you hear before you're running into a bunker. Make sure you're safe, you and your buddy.
What were your feelings while under attack or in combat?
Man, I hope those Patriots work. That's the first thing we thought. Second thing was like, making sure our buddy was. That's the first thing your training takes over. You make sure your buddy's gas mask is good. You make sure their suit is sealed. You make sure that they have their atropine and their 2-PAM chloride, chemical stuff that we would use in case we actually get chem. Stuff would penetrate our suits. You think about family. You think, wow, we're under attack. This isn't good.
What do you do if you come under chemicals?
The first thing you do is these 2 needles you have called atropine 2-PAM chloride, and they're pressure injected into you. It's a needle that has a little pressure cartridge in it, and it's about this long. And I've been told it's designed to go through a 2x4 because it has to go through your chem suit, your BDUs, anything that might be in the way, like a book in your BDU pocket, and then it still has to go into your thigh. And then it injects you with basically atropine 2-PAM chloride. And from just looking at it, you realize that it's so painful when stuff's going in that you have to grab your buddy and he has to give you the second shot because your body won't let you inject yourself with the second one and go through that much pain. But then you start realizing, I'd rather go through this pain than the actual pain of getting chem.
What were the results of your first combat experience? What did you learn from it, and what helped you?
I learned that we are definitely one team. There's a lot of inter-service rivalry. We're the Air Force, you're the Army, blah, blah, blah. But when it actually comes down to it, you're all the same team. The Army's covering you, you're covering the Army. Because we were providing the radar picture for all of Iraq. So we were the ones telling the Patriot missiles, okay, you've got an incoming. And then their radars would pick it up, and they would engage them. So we all became one giant cohesive force. We had Marines with us, and they would set up equipment just like ours, but it was the Marine equipment. So we would help them, and they would help us. Like if they were missing a part, and we had a lot of them, the spares. Hey, you go guys. For one example, the Marines came down, and they didn't have any intra-base communications. We had TISRs, the line of sight radios you can talk within a base. We had 6 spares. Hey, you guys need some? Sure. The chain of command worked it out, and we provided them communications. And now they could talk to the Naval CV battalion that was building their hooches. Stuff like that you never really think about while training. I mean, it's ingrained to you that you're the Air Force, take pride in it. But then when the actual work comes down to it, you're all one team. And you also learn that you can basically survive a week and a half straight in a chem suit, barely eating, not taking a shower almost, with little to no sleep. And one of the biggest things you learn is no matter how tired you are, an alarm red wakes you up. You can be passed out, tired, bone tired, and you hear that sound, instinct immediately takes over. You put on your chem, you put on your gas mask, seal it, and make sure everything's good to go. It's almost like second nature. You don't even think about it after a while. And most people don't realize that, but you learn that rather quickly.
What was your daily life like on the base when you weren't on duty? Or how was your life when you went off the base? What was?
Well, we had a schedule that allowed us one day off. So on that one day, we'd catch up on some sleep whenever we could. We'd go to a little BX, a little shop ed, and we'd get supplies that we might need, utilities, clothing supplies, and something like that. And I spent it in the gym, working out as much as I could, because you kept your body in top physical shape at those points, because all the running and lifting, your body needs to be in top physical shape. You can't go there weak. You just won't survive. We had a little DVD section where we would rent DVDs and watch them. We all had laptops almost, and those that didn't, we shared, and we played movies. Just something to relieve the stress. I'd email my family whenever I get a chance, call home for 5 minutes, let them know that I'm okay, talk to friends. You meet different people on bases. When we were there, also in Iraq, we were separated into two parts. There's one part which was the base, people who were regularly there, and us, the Air Control Squadron, which we rotated in and out. And we'd spend the time getting to know each other. Like we built a sand volleyball court, and we played. We'd just show up, hey, who's playing today? Firefighters were there, the cops were there, guys from base personnel, cooks. We'd all just get together and talk.
What was there to do off base in the surrounding areas for you?
During non-combat operations, when everything was relatively quiet, we can go downtown to some of the cities in Kuwait. Some of those cities are absolutely gorgeous. They had bazaars of gold and some of the best food you'd ever tasted. The mosques are gorgeous. These people spent so much time and effort building them and taking care of them. Their houses were amazing. They were almost palaces. I can't even describe half of them. They're just, you'd see them like, wow, that's a nice place. But yeah, we'd also had Camp Doha right on the coastal sea, and that was an army post. That was the main army post. We'd go down there, and they had the bigger VX, and we had a detachment of guys down there too, so we'd go down there, pick up some supplies, see how our guys are doing, and then come back.
Was your equipment sufficient?
Yes. Yes and no. You could always have more ammo, more spare parts, but for the main mission that we had, yes, we had the equipment. All our gear was there. Granted, sometimes we'd take a little while to get spare parts, but that's what we try to keep everything in working order, so we wouldn't need those spare parts. We had food.
What kind of equipment did you mainly use?
Spare parts, amplifiers, little circuit cards that would constantly get broken or dusty, just short circuit. We had Pajeros, these little 6-pack SUVs. That's our main mode of transportation off and on base. We had gators to go around in base, 4x4s or 6x4s. Ammunition. I'm a marksman in the 9mm. I was a 60 gunner and I'm a 16. We're all qualified on M16. That stuff, we constantly needed ammunition for that in case the worst were to happen and we need it. Food, fuel, everything. You can't exactly just plop down the middle of the desert and find a plug. Everything required fuel for the generators, for power generators. We went through that stuff constantly. Little office supply stuff you didn't know was about like paper when we were printing out stuff, orders or stuff like that, or new cut sheets. That stuff would run out. You can't exactly go to Walmart and pick that stuff up in the middle of the desert. Water was huge. We were drinking al-Hadid water, and that would be brought in by the Kuwaitis in just truckloads of this stuff. And because you couldn't drink the water anywhere else, we couldn't exactly make this stuff. And so that was everywhere you'd see around honestly, just pallets full of water.
How did your equipment compare to that of the enemies?
We strive for superiority, air superiority, and that same mentality comes into communication superiority. We had equipment that was top of the line compared to some of that stuff they were using. They were using antiquated stuff that whatever country could sell them. Old, antiquated, rusted stuff. It was pathetic sometimes when you think about the equipment, but that was our job to make sure we had absolute superiority. So we could jam them. They couldn't jam us. We had absolute security in our communications. Our equipment was constantly taken care of. If it ever broke, we had new parts. These people, they didn't have new parts.
Did you perform any unusual duties or services while overseas?
Yes. Well, overseas, no, but when I came back from the United States after my tour of combat, I was selected to fly on NCOIC, the National Airborne Operations Center. That's a special duty assignment. Only 18 at a time can fly. From SATCOMers can fly on that jet. It's a great honor to be selected because it is a selection process. You just don't say, hey, I want to go to the 1st AX, which is the unit that ran NAOC. You were selected. You put an applications packet through, and your commander had to endorse it, and then everyone there had to endorse that. Basically, they weeded out the people that didn't deserve or couldn't handle being there. NAOC was one of the greatest honors I've ever been bestowed on because of the level of trust and the level of equipment you get to work with, and the people you get to work with. I will never forget my combat buddies, but then again, I will never, ever forget the people that I flew with. You're stuck in an airplane for you don't know how many hours, how many days with just 2 other people for your job. So you get to know each other real well. You get to depend on each other a lot.
What did you have to go through to get this honor? You said an application process.
Yes.
What else happened?
Basically, they screen you. You have to hand in an SF-86, basically. It's a security clearance. You have to get a top secret, sensitive, compartmentalized information security clearance to work on this jet. And it's an exhausting process because you have to write down everything past 10 to 15 years of your life. Everything you can possibly remember, your family, your friends, your co-workers, your financial background, your law background, like if you have any speeding tickets and drug use. They find everything out. And they screen you to make sure you are supposed to be here. They're not going to take it, like we have evaluations, EPRs, enlisted performance reports. A requirement was a Firewall 5, which means everything had to be on the right-hand side. You had to be top-notch airman to even be considered for this assignment. They didn't take people who didn't quite meet up to the standards of the stresses of that job.
Now, what were your duties on this plane?
My duties were maintenance and operations of the SATCOM system. Basically, whenever the plane would break, we would be there no matter what time of day it was. This was a 9 to 5 job. You'd be there whenever you get the phone call and you'd fix it. And when you were airborne, when you're flying on the airplane, we were to operate the equipment, bouncing. Like we had a certain set of satellites we'd use. And our job was to set up, doing pre-flights. This would take 3 hours before the plane actually ever took off. You'd go in and you start a checklist of stuff to do. Make sure you stow your equipment. Make sure your equipment's in order. Shut off. Make sure everything was shut off properly. Last crew. Then you turn it back on. Then you configure it. And before any of this is done, you have to make sure your stuff's all in order. Oh, and yeah, and to even get, once you get selected for this, you have to earn your wings, your enlisted aircrew wings. You have to go through what is called Class 3 flight physical. They find out pretty much everything about your body. They hook you with EKGs, to do X-rays, find out your breathing. See, you have to do this Valsalva maneuver, basically blowing out your ears to make sure that if you were ever under rapid depressurization in an airplane, your ears wouldn't explode. So you have to be able to perform one of these. And they measure your heart rate, they take everything, and then you have to go through the altitude chamber. The altitude chamber is an interesting little rite of passage you have to go through. They basically put you in the steel tub, and they bring you up to altitude on 100% oxygen, mind you, and they bring you up to altitude. And then they tell you, okay, take off your masks. And you're exposed to hypoxia, basically lack of oxygen in your bloodstream. And this is so that you can tell what the symptoms are. Suppose there's a slow depressurization on the airplane, you got to be able to say, I'm suffering these symptoms. Okay, we got to depressurization somewhere in the airplane, and the pilot's got to bring it down. And a certain set of events happens after that. But at the one point, there's called a rapid D, a rapid depressurization. Basically, they bring you up to altitude, and then they simulate a pressure, a rupture in the hull, and it's just this loud boom, and everything, the whole room just fogs up, and you just kind of sit there for a while. Okay, Valsalva, 100%, and then you go through your motions. There's a little oxygen sensor. It's gang over 100% oxygen, oxygen on, 100% oxygen, emergency, and you check your oxygen. Basically, oxygen is forced into your system. You're reverse breathing. Your oxygen is forced into your system, and then you have to push it to exhale. Usually, you have to start your muscles inhale oxygen and then exhale is easy. It's the exact opposite. You relax to inhale oxygen, and you push to exhale oxygen. So these are the things that they kind of screen you for, to see if you can handle something like this.
So you received your wings. What do your wings look like?
These are my basic enlisted aircrew wings. Very few SATCOMers have these. Only those that are allowed, only those that have flying assignments have these. It was one of the greatest honors when I received my wings, because you wear them with such pride. It's when we went to visit bases that had SATCOMers that didn't fly, you could tell the way they looked at you that you were something different. Someone came up to me, "Why are you wearing wings? Well, what do you do?" And then you could tell them, "I fly at NCOIC." And they're like, "Oh, what's that?" Because most people don't know about it. And it's just something that's not readily talked about.
What was your unit like?
The first AX was comprised of some of the most professional people I've ever met. We had a large quantity of pilots necessary, communications officers, a lot of enlisted basic air crew, 1 alphas, called 1 alphas. They were communications troop like us, but they were just regular flyers. This is one of the regular assignments. They were all professional. You have to be to get to be flying on this airplane at this level. And it's just close-knit. We all spent time together. We all went out to dinner together on C squared. And C squared is when you have to come off away from the airplane. But you went to someone's house and you all watched a movie, or you went to a restaurant and you all ate together. You depend on each other so much in the air that that kind of dependency transcends the uniform, and you become really close friends. My other unit, 729, was the same thing, except we all shared combat experience together. So those memories will always last. But the 729 was more geared toward, okay, this is the mission. It's not going to be fun sometimes. Get it done. And that kind of mentality, after a while, started to sink in. And so I met very, very determined people when I was in 729.
Do you still talk to any of the men you served with?
I talk to as many of them as I can. Some of us have lost touch with one of each other, some of us have left the service. But the ones that I still keep in touch with, I keep in touch with regularly. I've got a friend right now in Italy who I've been together with since my first week of basic training, almost. He was in the brother flight. We went through tech school together. We went to our first unit together. We went to the desert together. I keep in touch with him. I keep in touch with my friends in Omaha. I keep in touch with my friends in the 729th that are still there. Every single person that I've ever spent actual combat time with or flying a NAC, I try to keep in touch with.
How did the officers of your unit act towards you guys?
They were absolute professionals. They had to be. These are the people that are leading us into combat. These are the people that are supposed to keep us calm when some of us weren't. And they are the leaders, and they acted as such. The pilot, at the same time, they were all very approachable. I could walk into my commander's office, Brandon, after telling my boss that I was going to do it, and following the chain of command, and talk to him. If I have some problems, I'd talk to him, or the first sergeant, or the major in charge of communications. I could always go to her if I had a problem that I felt uncomfortable talking to someone else, and she would sit me down, close the office door, and we would talk candidly. But you always had to remember, respect for them and the mission first. The pilots that I flew with on NAV, they were awesome people. I mean, I could talk to them, and not, okay, yes, they're a lieutenant colonel or they're a major. Their rank demands respect, but at the same time, you knew that your life was in their hands when they're flying, and they realized that. So there was a level of trust there that some people find hard to believe, but at the same time, there was always that professionalism. We were all there to do a job. So I looked up to a lot of officers there.
What was the lowest rank on the plane? Were you one of them?
No. I was a middle rank. I was an NCO, staff sergeant. The lowest rank we had was an airman first class in E3. And they were just right out of tech school, and that was the 1 alphas, and they were learning their jobs. By the time we were not allowed, as SACOM, we were not allowed to go on that plane until we were at least 5 levels, which is a senior airman and above. And basically, they didn't take too many of those. You had to be an NCO to fly on this jet, because that level of responsibility demanded it. The 1 alphas had multiple redundancies. They could have 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 of their guys. We only had 3 on the plane at any one time. And we worked on shift alone. The other 2 guys were just sleeping or taking their time off. When you want shift, you want shift alone. So if anything broke, you had to fix it. And the level of communication we were providing to our certain customers, this stuff didn't break and you just didn't say, well, I'll get to this later. You had to fix it now. Or at least find some way to fix it now. And you need a certain level of maturity to handle that.
What awards, medals, or commendations did you get?
So I've got my ribbon rack here. I'm still waiting for a couple of them to come back, but basic training ribbon. This is the marksman ribbon. I earned this when I became a marksman in the 9mm. The NCOIC Professional Military Education ribbon. That is awarded when you graduate Airman Leadership School, which I graduated top of my class, the Leviton winner. This is the longevity you're given after 4 years of honorable service. This is one of the Expeditionary medals that are given out. If you served in combat operations, you get a gold leaf around it, and it's for every 45 days if you spend in the desert. This one is the Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary Medal, and that's for if you were a part of Operation Iraqi Freedom, Eagle, Enduring Freedom. This is the what we call this is the whole Expeditionary Medal. This is what we call the Kuwait Medal, the Desert Medal. If you spent, I think it was over 120 days consecutive on the desert, you were awarded that. This is the National Defense Service Medal, the Air Force Good Conduct Medal. If you serve, I believe it's 3 years good conduct. Basically, you haven't gotten any paperwork, any trouble. You're a service to the uniform. You were awarded this. This is the Combat Readiness Medal. This one is special for me because very few people get it. You have to be in a combat unit for 2 years in order to get certified for this medal. It's not worth any points towards promotion, but it kind of tells you, okay, you've been trained to go into harsh environments and you can come back in one piece. This one was the Outstanding Unit Award with a Valor Device. I earned this when I was part of the 729th and the 386 Expeditionary Air Patrol Squadron during the last campaign, Iraqi Freedom Campaign. This is the Air Force Achievement Medal. I have 2 of these, and they were earned for various achievements. One of them was for a deployment in CONUS, and the other one was for Iraqi Freedom.
Anything else?
Yes, in the military we all have coins. And coins are presented for various reasons. Different operations are. Some of them are given to you for outstanding performance. This one was provided to me by the Operations Group Commander, the full-bird colonel of the 55th Wing. I received this coin when I was awarded, when I was nominated and accepted for Airman of the Quarter for the 55th Wing for the past year. It's a great honor, basically the top airman of the entire wing. This one was awarded to me and awarded to every airman on graduation from basic training. This is the first coin that people get when they graduate. It's a constant reminder of who you are. The Air Force Code is on it. Excellence in all we do, integrity first and service before self. This one was for my training in Fort Gordon, 81st Training Wing, the Black Knights. We were the only Air Force detachment on an Army post, so we kind of learned to stick together, and that's where I earned this one from. This one I have multiple of, but that doesn't mean they're not special. This is a excellence coin, the deployment coin given by the commander of the 729th Air Patrol Squadron. When we were to go to any deployment, whether it be training or real world, if you showed excellence in the eyes of your peers and those above you, you were awarded one of these coins. The back it reads, in recognition for superior performance from the Angry Warriors Commander. The Angry Warriors was our nickname, the 729th, the best in the field, and we proved it time and again. And this one was given to me by the Command Chief Master Sergeant of the 386th Expeditionary Wing. That chief, he was stout. He knew what was going on. He never sugarcoated anything, which sometimes hurt, but like when we had orders to stay there for indefinite period of time, he was the one that told us. And this coin was given to me in the desert. It means a lot to me because it showed that I didn't do that bad while I was over there. Kept my head on straight. I helped out my fellow airmen whenever I could, and this was in recognition for that.
What was the most interesting thing you experienced during your service?
Flying on NAV was definitely interesting. There's very few ways to describe how it feels to be flying aboard that jet, doing the job that you're doing. And aerial refueling being one of those things. Basically, aerial refueling is when you're flying, the plane can fly indefinitely as long as it has fuel. So what we would do is we'd come up behind a tanker and we'd fly underneath them, and then they would extend their boom out and we'd connect. And for however long it took, 30 minutes or an hour, however long it took, we would be hooked up to these guys, and the pilot had to keep the nose perfectly straight because that's where the input was for the fuel. So in order to do that, according to laws of math and physics, he would have to throw the back of the plane around like this and keep it stable. And for half an hour, we'd buckle in because it's a wild ride, and we'd dim the lights in the back, and we're basically hung on for our stomachs. And it's just up and down and side to side, and you never knew how long this was going to take. And once in a while they'd do an emergency separation, where they'd call over the intercom, attention on board the aircraft, emergency separation in 5 seconds. And basically the pilot would just do one of these, and separate completely from the airplane, and your stomach would just rise. And after a while you started getting used to it. But just for the new guys, we'd put them in 5 right, which was the furthest seat in the back on the right. And basically it was a flip down little seat. It technically wasn't a real seat. It had a seatbelt on it, but that was just an afterthought. And that was the furthest point back on the airplane, and you would put the new guys, obviously there was, and you just go for up and down. And every motion on the front, when you would drop an inch on the front, you drop 3 feet in the back. So it's like, oh, it's an experience. The people that I've met, I've had the pleasure of shaking hands with their commander-in-chief, the President of the United States. I've had the honor of having dinner with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Myers. I've met 3-star generals, General Hobbins, I've met him. I've had the chance of translating for the Chilean Chief of Staff of the Air Force when he came down to the Southern 29th to visit and check out our equipment. He needed a translator, and I spoke fluent enough Spanish that my commander requested that I be there to help translate. Combat is obviously special, something that no one ever wants to go through, but we're all trained to do it. My first Scud missile with my buddy next to me, that's a moment that I'll never forget. Airman Zeller, he was a good friend of mine, and still is. And we were our buddies. When an attack would come in, we'd run together to a bunker. Once we were running separately, and we got separated. And I looked over, and I realized his face, all the blood had drained from his face because he realized that he forgot his mask in the office. I've never seen anyone run so fast back towards the office and then back towards the bunker. He's putting on the mask while he's doing this, because by this point everyone's hunkered down and he's still running around the base thinking what's happening. It's little moments like that you never ever forget.
What was one of the most inspiring things that you experienced during your service? What inspired you to keep going?
The people. It's always the people. The people you meet and the job you do. You always have to remember, you're doing this for a reason. You either, whatever reasons it might be, money, education, to being part of something special, your friends. It's always something that drives you. And for me, it was the people that I was working with and the equipment that I was working with. You always learn something new. I was constantly learning something new about technology, communications, the way the Air Force worked, the higher chain of command. The interactions you had. You always learn something new.
Who do you remember most from your service and why?
I remember Airman Zellner, of course, because he was my combat buddy. We were always together during combat. I remember my NCOIC Master Sergeant Regan. He was the head of our shop, and he was a source of he was like a rock, steady. Okay, he kept us in line, kept us focused. He was also the one that recommended me to become a member of NAOC because he flew on NAOC as well. Major Stevens, she was the officer in charge of communications. Whenever I had a tough time in combat, she would always be there to keep me focused. All my commanders, Colonel DeWiz, Colonel Tatum. I remember Rob Ross, he was my NCOIC when I flew on NAOC. Scott Wolf, he was my golfing buddy. Whenever we went to training together at Fort Gordon, and the first thing we did is we realized, wow, we're going to be near Augusta National. Let's bring our golf clubs. So when every deployment that I went on in AF that I can remember, Scott was always with me. He would always send us together, and so he was always something I remember. Those are the people, the places and the things. Well, I'll always remember camel spiders. When we had a camel, and I also would see him once in a while, and he brought us a present every once in a while. It's called a camel spider. A little spider about this big. It's a cross between a scorpion and a tarantula. Nasty little thing. And the venom has an anesthesia on it, so you don't feel it while it's on you when it's biting you. Zellner, another reason I always remember him, is he was smoking out at night, and he was under a light, and all of a sudden I see him just bat out of hell fast start running towards the dorms and the hooches. I just realized what's going on, and then I see what's behind him. It's a camel spider chasing him. It's just little things like that you always remember. He'll never forget it, let me tell you that much.
What experience left the greatest impression on you?
The war, the Iraqi conflict, the 6 months that I was down there in Salem. You learn to appreciate everything, the littlest things. You learn to appreciate a hot shower. You learn to appreciate 8 hours of sleep. You learn to appreciate your friends. You learn to appreciate a good meal. Email. I can log onto my computer right now and start having to go in email, or I can make a phone call, call anyone. Over there in the desert, you had to wait 3 or 4 hours to make a 5-minute phone call. Privacy. Privacy was huge, and we were all living in tents. We'd come up with like blankets, separate from the wall blankets, so we could have at least some peace and quiet. Speaking of peace and quiet, you learn to appreciate that much. The British, we were all stationed with the British, and they had the British Tornado. Loudest fighter I've ever heard in my life. That thing woke you up no matter what. So, for 6 months, we'd hear them constantly taking off. And after a while, you'd appreciate the times when it was peace and quiet. Like I would love to just find somewhere and just retire somewhere nice and quiet, where I don't have to hear the sound of an engine again, or the sound of alarm red, or the sound of a sonic boom of an incoming missile. Yeah, it's a peace and quiet. You learn to appreciate family. The little contact that I had with my family was a godsend. You learn to appreciate the little things. You learn to appreciate other cultures, other religions. That was a big one. I traveled all over the world. I saw Germany, Cyprus, Kuwait. You learn that you're an ambassador, an American ambassador, no matter what you were doing, what your position, what your station in life is. And you learn to realize that everyone thinks of Americans as they say you act, and you learn that however you behave is how they think. Okay, this is an American. This is how they think. This is how they behave. So you try as hard as you possibly can to portray an image of we're here to help. That's the hardest thing for some people to do. They don't realize it. But I learned that, and my buddies learned that real quick. I learned to appreciate many religions, Muslim religions, Unorthodox religions. We had one guy in our shop who was Wiccan. That's not a usual one, but we learned to appreciate it. So it's the little things you take for granted as a civilian. Nice clothing, the fact that you can change clothes instead of wearing BDUs for 6 months straight. Food. When I got home, I cooked. My wife cooked this awesome meal for me, and I ate every bite. Because after a while, MREs get old. Meals ready to eat. There's a little bag with a little heating element inside of it, and it's good for you. It's got a lot of calories. It keeps your energy level up, but you don't exactly go to a restaurant to order this stuff. That's the biggest thing, is learning to appreciate the little things, learning to work together with other people. When I was in basic training, you're thrust in an environment with different cultures, different people, different mentalities, and you all have one goal: get through this. So you put aside all the petty differences, and you work together towards one goal. Whether it be to march straight, or to get out of the chow hall in 2 minutes flat. I can't remember tasting a thing in basic training. It's just, you learn. You're constantly learning. The first person to forget that is the first person to fall behind.
How did you feel when you came home? How were you treated?
I was treated with the utmost respect. Welcoming hero. I'm not a hero. I've never claimed to be, but it's, people appreciate the service, the sacrifices that you made. You learn to appreciate the sacrifices, the ultimate sacrifice that others have made. We were treated very well. I hugged my wife forever, it seemed like, when I got home. Just family. The first thing you want to do is talk to family, speak to your friends that were back home, drive your own car. And it was good to come home. It was real good to come home. Would I go back? Yes. My friends are all there. That's what it's all about. But it's good to come home.
Where were you on September 11th, 2001?
I was in Ali Al Salem Air Base, Kuwait. We were deployed there, and I watched the Twin Towers fall on TV, delayed. As soon as that happened, we were all in combat gear, battle, they call it, camp gear, weapons, leaning forward. We were already waiting for the orders to say, where are we going? And that's when it really hit home while we were there. Before, we were doing the Southern No-Fly Zone. That was our job, that was our rotation. Monitor the Southern No-Fly Zone in Iraq. And then the towers fell, and then the Pentagon got hit. There was a lot of anger, and we were all ready. We didn't care. Where are we going? We mourned our dead, and then we were okay. Who's responsible, and where are they? That was the only thing on our mind.
We know how our culture felt about September 11th. How did the cultures over there feel about September 11th? Were they sympathetic? Were they happy that it had happened? Or
there was a mix, of course. There always will be. The Kuwaitis, they offered a lot their sympathies towards us, and we accepted them gratuitously, very gratefully. Some people were happy about it. Those people that were happy about it, but for whatever reasons they may be, hopefully they learn that there are different ways of going about life. But the support that we received from our host nations, the Kuwaitis in specific, were very, very, very needed. This was a time when you didn't know who was our friend and who wasn't. And so the other cultures, they let us know.
What advice would you give to new enlistees that are about ready to go to the Middle East?
Bring lots of supplies, camelbacks, lots of water, phone cards, and be ready. It's just nothing. Training only goes so far. Nothing really prepares you for the incoming shock or the reality of setting in a reality that you're under attack. Someone wants to kill you for no reason other than you're an American. So I would tell them, be ready for that mentality. Be prepared for the obvious, the not so obvious, the little things. You're never going to be able to tell wholeheartedly, other than your buddies, who's your friend and who isn't. Kiss your family. And just hug them and kiss them, because it's going to be a while before you see them again. And don't take anything for granted. Don't go there with hate in your heart. You're over there to do a job, whether you like being there or not. None of us like being in the desert for 6 months plus, but it's a job that we all signed up to do. So it's not easy. No one ever said it was going to be easy. But go over there, be prepared, take what you need, and just go with an open mind.
What are you doing now that you're out of the service?
I'm going back to school to Clark University to finish my electrical engineering degree, but I've also signed up to be an ROTC cadet. So I plan on returning back to the service as soon as I graduate as a commissioned officer.
What do you see in your future going back into the Air Force?
If everything goes well, I'd like to be a pilot. I'm striving to become a pilot. Not a fighter pilot, but a bomber pilot or tanker pilot. Something graceful. And the B-1B is a very graceful machine. The B-2 is an amazing piece of equipment. The stealth bomber. But yeah, that's what I'd like. That's what I would. If that doesn't work out, well, there's other options. Communications, where I came from. Communications, linguistics, intelligence officers. The military offers options, which is a great thing. But if everything goes well, I'd like to earn my officer wings, my pilot wings.
Okay, I think we're done.
Great.